really important that we begin to change the mindset of young people to know that your vote counts.
They don't understand that the legislative arm of government is actually a co-equal arm of government.
We have an incredible amount of potential.
Whatever it is I was doing, because of my personal DNA, it had to be of an international standard. Which is what, seriously speaking, is all about.
Yes, welcome. We're still talking about Nigeria. Yes, it's independence. It's our Independence Month, and we are concerned for the country. And we're talking about institutions last week. This week, the concern is about where's Nigeria today at 57? Where's Nigeria going? What was the past like? And I have somebody I would choose to describe as a concerned citizen, but a true Nigerian, considering the fact that he has names for different parts of Nigeria. And, well, some of you may recognize him because in recent times, some of his writings have gone viral on social media. But one key thing for me is the fact that he's somebody that loves and knows and believes in history and the role it can play in helping to right our country as we move forward. So if you don't go away, we'll be back in a short while with my guest today, whose name you will find out when you return. Yes, welcome back. It was something that was shared at a speech, from a speech that this, young man gave, professor of law, at an activity that was organized by what they call the Touchline program. And reading through that and finding out that Nigeria really, really has a lot of intelligent young people who have the knowledge that will change the country. Thank God for technology. It's my guest today is Professor Christopher Mustafa Nwaokobia. Did I get it all right?
Junior, you got it all right.
Okay, but the junior part was, where did you get the junior from? You're not the first son.
My dad was the senior.
Yes, but why did he give you, because you're not the first son? Yes.
Yeah, I think it was providential. I think my dad was a bit prophetic because I lost my other brother early in life.
Wow.
And so I became the first son, as it were. I stepped into his shoes in almost all respect because my dad was passionately concerned about the good society, the beloved society.
How did you describe? He's one of those civil servants who believe that Nigeria
is an awesome country and will be the greatest in Africa.
Did he ever make you understand why he thought that way? Because I know he's schooled in the US. How did he end up thinking like that? Is it that that's what our fathers in the past thought like, and what caused the change?
My dad taught me that all humans, and I think he took that from, maybe they were about the same generation, the black preacher from Atlanta, Georgia, Martin Luther King Jr., who is my mentor, who said that all men are tied together by a single network of mutuality, held together by a single gap of oneness. What affects one directly affects the other indirectly. So my dad kept telling me whilst I was growing up that if you were to need blood and you're in the emergency hall, if a black man that is O positive comes in and you're O negative, if there is any such thing, and then a white man who's O negative comes in, he will feed you with blood. The black man won't feed you with blood, you know.
That's if you're a black man.
So he just, not because you're not, the color doesn't matter, the life is what matters. And I decided to dig in and perhaps understand why God created them that way. You know, and fundamentally, God created the universe in twos, male, female, anion, cation, you know. And that's what white and black epitomizes. God is a being of love and a being of reason. And essentially, historicity proves that the white is perhaps the being of reason and the black man the being of love. And if you dig in deeper, yes, that's why if you were to live in the US, you find out that you may just walk a whole street and a father lives maybe on house number 1, the son, house number 4. If they're whites, the boy may just not see his father all year. But if they're blacks, they eat lunch perhaps every Sunday. They eat dinner perhaps every Saturday. It's the nature of God made manifest in white and black.
In different ways.
That's right. And this is the greatest nation under heaven. And I'm passionately saying that without fear of querulous critics, without fear of equivocation, without any ounce of equivocation. And I'll tell you why. This is the only country in the world where you have Christians and Muslims almost at the same number equilibrium. This is the only country in the world where you have what some who are close to metaphysics and cosmic theology will tell you that this is a country where you have a super cord of three. The Bible says the cord of two is strong, the cord of three who can break. Now, if you were to look at our map, you actually see the confluence, creating Nigeria as a triangle, the north, the old eastern region, and the west. Now, on that, you have three major tribes or ethnic stock, the Yorubas, the Igbos, and the Hausas. Then you go further, you find out that beyond that, you have religiously Christianity, Islam, and traditional worship. And this super cord of three, go through history, Adesuwa, you find out that there is nowhere in the world where a cord of three has broken up.
No, tell me, you know, our national anthem goes by, there's one line there that says, the labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. Could our heroes past be responsible for the kind of confusion that we have? People are even calling for a break or some kind of restructuring in Nigeria.
Let me say this. It is not a coincidence that we're talking on the month of our independence. It is not. Now, who were our heroes? They were young men exposed to Western education, exposed to all kinds of challenge, and then they were active when the world was talking about breaking the walls of colonialism. And they struggled together, they worked together, they had their differences, but they met, and in 1952-53, they came out with their first working constitution, which allowed for the regions to grow at their pace. And then
And these heroes you're talking about, you'll be talking about Sardauna.
I'm talking about Sardauna, I'm talking about Obafemi Awolowo, I'm talking about Zik of Africa, Nnamdi Azikiwe, and I'm talking about the young other elements who were with them, the likes of, Chief Antonio Anahoro, the Adegoka Delabus of this world, and they had quite a lot. And then you had Tafawa Balewa, just with Sardauna, a whole lot of them. And they were passionate young people who believed that the time to make the largest country in Africa independent was then. And my dad told me that the morning when the Union Jack was lowered, that the hopes and expectations were monstrous, that Nigerians celebrated, and indeed Africa, and that all over the world there was hysteria, there was excitement, and major hope, because Nigeria had produced strong African protagonists, great characters who were, remember Zik was called Zik of Africa, and then Awo was looked up, people looked up to Awo as a beautiful ideologue. So they believed that the country of these great characters was going to come great. 1960, we had a republic, we had a constitution, an independent constitution that allowed for devolution of power, through fiscal federalism, resource controls, and the likes. And then 1963, we had a Republican constitution that deepened on the frontiers of resource control, devolution of power, and true fiscal federalism. And then, interestingly, our country was beautiful.
So?
Then, unfortunately, on the 15th of January, some young thugs thought it was time to do what was happening around the world in the Asian sector, and then a few of African countries where coups were beginning to get into, was becoming a fad. And Nzogwu and co truncated it. They were angry with corruption, according to them.
Yes, they had good reasons to do it.
Good reasons? I think I wouldn't say they had good reasons. I think they were passionate, they were emotional, they were, there's a difference between infatuation and love. They were actually infatuated. They thought that, oh, come on, take these people out and then put the country on a fantastic trajectory. But they didn't look at the major peculiarities with our nation, and that was where we got it all wrong. At the end of the day, the armed forces messed up, threw away our constitution and messed up our federalism. Iransi came with Decree 34, which unified the federal civil service, and that was the beginning of several other military coups, several decrees, several constitutional amendments, that ended up messing up everything that had to do with the normative or true federalism.
Because they threw away the Constitution. I'll take a break. It's a good time to take a break. When I come back, you spoke about peculiarities that these young people didn't understand. Do we understand those peculiarities now? But I'll take a break, and when we return, we'll address the question of if we ourselves understand that those peculiarities, if we don't address them, we can never be together. I'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Before I continue on the peculiarities thing, I was just curious about your Mustafa. I didn't tell the viewers at the beginning that you have actually slept in jail before, and you were once a presidential candidate. And is that where you got your name, Mustafa, from? How did Mustafa happen to you?
The truth is that I've led several movements from when I was 18, passionately believing that we must contribute our own quota to national development.
When you say we, the young?
The young, yeah. I represent a generation, and I'm still very passionately concerned about that generation. And I say that advisedly. Some have said to me it is not about the age.
Yeah.
And that's another debate that I'd love to take the best person on, you know, because I still think that the Americans will say that if you have tried a certain normative over and over again, it is better to go the risks, go the way of daring something new. If perhaps you fail daring something new,
You can.
it's obvious that you have done so much of the old and you haven't done well. And so history will vindicate you. And then it was Albert Einstein who said that attempting to solve a problem the same way it was created is nothing but foolishness.
So Mustafa?
You know, then it was when I was detained under Obasanjo's government for some elements of my old movement, the Youth Democratic Movement did, which of course had to do with the NMPC building. Investigations, I was in detention for quite some time, investigations were conducted, and the matter thrown out in court because they found out that I actually did not instruct arson. I took responsibility because I wanted to stop further arson. And, but interestingly, the Mustafa came because one of the SSS jailers, you know, I was arrested on Christmas Day. My son was just 3 months old. And one morning I woke up in detention and I was feeling very troubled. I called one of the SSS, my jailers, and I said to him, I may have been so strong here, but I just remember that if a woman is breastfeeding and she doesn't know the whereabouts of her husband, it might just affect the mother and the child. Mm-hmm. Can you reach out to tell my wife that I'm well, tell her that I'm okay? And then he said, well, this is setting Daniel. And Daniel said to me, it's against national security. He won't do that, you know. And then, but I was really troubled. The next morning, I think he told some people that, oh, Chris is not in high spirits today. So a certain Muslim jailer, I don't want to call his full names here, came to me the next morning and said, Oga Chris, what's wrong with you? I said, no, I'm just bothered. He said, what is it I should tell him? And I told him. And he said, is that all? I said, yes. I said, okay. But you know it's difficult because it's against the rule of the service. I said, but whatever you can do. And then the next morning he came to me and said, and called me Mustafa. And I said, what does that mean? He said, the chosen one. And I said, chosen one. He said, Almighty Allah told him to do anything I wanted to do. Now he finally did what I wanted, you know. But
so why did you hold on to the name?
Asked me if I'd hold on to the name. And then, interestingly, Christopher means instead of the Messiah, the cross-bearer. Mm-hmm. And if Mustafa comes along the same line, it's just about the same thing. They're more like synonyms. And then I remember that the young man said to me, if I'll take the name, Allah will bless me. And it's always been about my passion for change, my passion for a new Nigeria. It connects with my brothers up north who essentially understand that our destinies are tied together.
So why did you run for presidency in 2011?
2011.
You were barely 40.
Yeah, I was just, when I was filling the form, I was going to be 40 in 3 weeks. And so constitutionally, I was 40 before the election, so I could run. Now, why I did was because I found out that my generation predominantly accepted PAs, SAs, and all kinds of aids as their lot in our enterprise. And I remember when I was growing up, our present president then in 1984 said that the youths, the young, were the leaders of tomorrow. And At 40, I didn't consider myself a boy anymore. And
you know why I asked? Because you obviously didn't think you were going to win, though.
That's why, if I shock you, I actually thought that our message could resonate. I give you with every sense of humility. I had the best manifesto of the 19 candidates. And my big brother, Dele Momodu, and a few others will confirm that to you. I presented a manifesto that did resonate. I thought that my young brothers and sisters, I thought that we could connect and take back our country for good. Because for a 40-year-old, that all you have seen, all you have heard, a litany of woes, a jambalaya of discord, an anomy of sorts. Pain defines a trajectory, angst, a daily life, joblessness everywhere. All we could tell was stories of failed leadership. And I thought at that point that we could just say, let's do it.
So it didn't happen.
So for me it was, countrymen, to the bridge, dear friends, let's save our country. My generation must rise up, ask questions. My generation must say no to recycling of the gerontocracy that holds this country down. My country must understand that our divide is not religion, essentially. It's about the political class that profiteers using religion as a dividing tool. My generation must understand that our Igbo-ness, Yoruba-ness, Hausa-ness, Ibibio-ness, and the likes is not the problem, because we share a common denominator. Joblessness, pain, want, and hunger is that which holds us together. And so we must break it down and break the walls of wickedness by aspiring for leadership at all levels.
That we require.
We must unite and get politically active, ask strong questions, and take leadership for the good of the masses of our people.
Thank you very much, Prof, for being my guest. I'm sure I will invite you again when we're getting towards 2019. However, I believe that at the end of the day, and you'll agree with me, a sense of history is what we all must cultivate.
Fundamentally, yes.
Fundamentally, before we act. If we don't know our past, we can act on it.
That's right.
Thank you very much for being my guest.
My pleasure.
And thank you for watching. We'll see you again next week on Seriously Speaking. Bye for now.